My daughter's student teacher mocked her for her stutter, not knowing I was a school inspector. It was a Thursday when my daughter came home crying and ran straight to her room. Usually I'd just leave her alone and wait for her to come to me, but it was the third time that week. So I slowly opened the door and offered chocolate-covered strawberries as a bribe for her to open up. After eating 3, she finally broke down. Mr. Bradley makes fun of me every single day. I sat on her bed and she told me everything. How this 23-year-old student teacher called her NPC when she was quiet, said she was buffering when her stutter made her pause mid-sentence. Today she'd asked him to stop and he'd laughed, told the whole class she was giving victim energy and couldn't take constructive criticism. The worst part, she whispered, is everyone laughs, even my friends. My first instinct was to march into that school immediately, but Ava grabbed my arm. Mom, no. Linda's mom complained last week and Mr. Bradley told the whole class she was having a main character moment. It made everything worse for Linda. She admitted her stutter was getting so bad she was terrified to speak in any class now. The other teachers thought Bradley was just connecting with their generation, and he only had 3 weeks left of his placement anyway. She looked at me with those exhausted eyes, the same look I'd seen when kids at her old school found out about her stutter. Promise you won't do anything embarrassing? I promise, I said, hugging her tight. She didn't know I was technically telling the truth, since there'd be nothing embarrassing about a routine inspection. That Monday, I called the school as just Ava's mom, wanting to observe the classroom. They were thrilled, parent engagement and all that. I deliberately wore my most frazzled mom outfit, arrived 5 minutes late apologizing profusely, acting like one of those helicopter parents teachers hate. The student teacher Mr. Bradley barely looked at me when I sat in the back. Young guy, probably thought he was a trophy teacher with his backwards baseball cap and sneakers. He immediately called Ava up to solve a math problem on the board. I watched my daughter's hands shake as she walked up. She knew the answer. We'd practiced it last night, but when she opened her mouth, the stutter hit hard. The Annan answer is chat. Is she cooked? Bradley said to the class, and they erupted in laughter. No cap. This is giving me secondhand embarrassment. I stood up. Ava turned to me with daggers in her eyes to tell me to relax, but I ignored her and took a deep breath. That's not funny. She has a speech impediment. You're mocking. He actually laughed at me. It's not that deep, Mom. We're just having fun, right, class? The students giggled nervously. He rolled his eyes and mouthed helicopter parent to them. Ava had tears in her eyes. You're her teacher. This is bullying. Okay, let's not be dramatic. I'm preparing them for the real world. Maybe if she wasn't so in her feelings about everything, she'd actually improve. He turned back to Ava. You can sit down now. My daughter practically ran back to her seat, face burning red. I forced myself to sit back down too, pulling out my phone to anxiously text, but actually documenting everything. During break, Bradley approached me with his condescending smile. Look, I get it. Parents want to protect their kids, but they need to learn to take a joke. Life's gonna roast them way harder than I ever will. Is that your teaching philosophy? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. It works. I get their attention by being real, by calling them out. They respect authenticity. Then he started bragging, actually bragging about making a boy cry last week. Bro was literally shaking. It was low-key hilarious. Kid needed to toughen up anyway. He mentioned his uncle ran a private school, how he already had a job lined up there after graduation. Teaching's easy when you understand their language, you know? I nodded along, letting him dig his own grave. He mistook my silence for agreement and kept going, telling me about other students he'd helped by keeping it real. Each story was worse than the last. That's when Principal Declan walked in for what she called a routine observation. She looked at me, and instead of using my first name like she had on the phone, she said, "Oh, Inspector Merricks, I didn't expect to see you here today." Bradley's face went white. He turned to look at me, really look at me for the first time. I stood up slowly, pulling out my inspector credentials from my purse. Mr. Bradley, I've been conducting an unofficial evaluation that just became very official. His mouth opened and closed like an ugly fish. The principal stood frozen by the door. Emotional abuse, creating a hostile learning environment, professional misconduct, discrimination against a student with a documented learning disability. I listed each violation calmly. It's just jokes, he stuttered. They know I'm kidding. I'm being ironic. There's nothing ironic about a child developing a stress-induced speech regression in your classroom. Bradley was removed immediately. His university pulled him from the program 2 days before he would have completed his degree. 3 months later, I saw Bradley working at the food court. I made a complaint about finding hair in my meal and got him fired.